Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to continue with chapter 2. Wanted to seek your very good wishes. It's always nice when we have good wishes for others. We should never have any ill feeling towards anybody. Even we may consider somebody, this is my enemy. No, don't have any ill feeling towards anybody. And we'll explain that a little bit later, a little bit more. Okay, so I wanted to do a quick summary of why of the last week's studies. And I was going to test you actually, if you don't mind. So it's a good job we started early. I just realized I'm going to test you a little bit as well. Let's not go through the overall summary. So the first part of the second chapter is where Arjun takes shelter of the Supreme. He asks the Supreme, my dear Lord, I don't know what to, I'm confused about my duty. I've lost all composure because of miserly weakness. And in this condition, please tell me, what do I do now? So that's really important. Now, I wanted to test you, and you can put your electronic hands up. What was the lesson from this first session? What was the lesson from it? Shruti, you've got your hand up. I won't ask you, Shruti. I know you will know. What was the lesson? Okay, Arjun, you can unmute yourself.
Was it that that Krishna told that whatever thing you need to do may it be it might affect you physically or mentally. You need to do it as it's your duty and you to protect the country.
Wow, that was actually the next lesson that we're going to learn. You've jumped the gun. No, that wasn't quite what he said. Let's go for, is it Akasha? You can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We are not the body, we are the soul.
Again, that's not the first instruction, not the first lesson, sorry, of the second chapter. Remember, what is Arjun doing? Okay, so let's ask Ishwari. Ishwari, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, can't hear you.
Is it that you should surrender to Lord Krishna?
Close. Surrender to somebody.
Oh, surrender to your guru.
Yeah, seek spiritual guidance. And generally that is from the spiritual master. Very, very good. Well done. Because this first part of the second chapter, Arjun is surrendering to Krishna. I'm lost, help me. And to be honest, in this world, we are all pretty much lost. At some point or other, we will come to a situation where no one can help us. And that's where we need help, just like Arjun needs help now. Okay, second part. I think you've already sort of got that. We are not, this is the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita, actually. Krishna explains, we are not the body. But I wanted to ask you, what was the lesson from that? What was, if anybody remembers this, I'll be really impressed. What was the lesson? Janya, what was the thing to take away from this? Oh, you can unmute yourself. Janya? Okay, let's try Arjun. You can unmute yourself.
The thing is, like, even the thing Krishna told us, you'll never die, and the reason he told us was the main reason Arjuna didn't want to fight was because he thought he would be killing everyone that he was spent his childhood with. But then Krishna told it that even though he would kill their physical body, their spiritual soul will still be
Yeah.
in this planet
Okay.
overlooking.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on. I'm really impressed. Thank you for that. It means you grasped the instruction Krishna was giving. So I appreciate that. I had a specific thing that we should do every day to remind ourselves. What was that? Aaron?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, like that you are not the body, you are the soul, and that people shouldn't really grieve over a body because the soul was eternal.
Fantastic. I'm really impressed with you guys. Very good. Pari, what was the thing that every day one should try to do?
Sorry, Prabhuji, was it the same mirror question that when you
Yeah,
look into the mirror?
that's
Yes.
the one. That's the
Yes,
one.
you wake up and you say, I'm a devotee of Krishna and I'm not a body, I'm a soul surrendered upon him.
Thank you, Pari. Very good. Excellent. Good memory. So that was this instruction. I'm glad so many of you have got it, that we are the soul. We are not this body. We're beyond the body. We're more than the body. And the body is changing every moment. So the point was that what we should do at least once a day, remind ourselves at least once a day. And I find that if we repeat something regularly, we'll actually understand it, actually believe it. So try to do that every single day, at least once. And I would suggest first thing in the morning, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're looking into the mirror, say to yourself, I'm not this body, I'm pure spirit soul. Just a very quick point about the characteristics of the soul. It's eternal, changeless, indestructible, imperishable, immeasurable. It's tiny, but at the same time, it's immeasurable. It cannot slay, nor is it slain. Doesn't have birth or death. It's always been. Does not come into being. Has not come into being. Will not come into being. Is unborn, ever existing, primeval, immutable. Cannot be cut into pieces. Cannot be burned. Cannot be drowned. Cannot be withered by the wind. Is unbreakable, insoluble. Cannot be burned nor dried, is everlasting, is present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, eternally the same, invisible. To us it's invisible, to our eyes, inconceivable, amazing. So these are things which I just wanted to bring to your attention, the characteristics of a soul. Okay, I'm going to pass you on to Sanjana. And she will take you through the next two lessons. Thank you, Sanjana. So nice you're here.
Sure. Hare Krishna, everyone. Quickly before we begin chapter 31, I saw a question in the chat from Srinitya saying, can you clarify the meaning of one who accepts himself as a guru, accepts a fool for a disciple? I guess because if you think that, what it means is that if you think you need no help because you can be your own guru and therefore your own disciple, you're kind of fooling yourself because you think you can sort everything out by yourself and that there is no assistance needed from the kind of people who know the spiritual works, people who've been trained in that matter through the cyclic succession. We learn a little bit more about that question in chapter 4, which talks directly about how the gurus are formed and where they learn their knowledge and where transcendental knowledge comes from. But the main thing to take away is that we shouldn't think that we are a fool for needing help. If anything, we should see ourselves as fools if we think we don't need help.
Very good, very good. Are all the same, souls the same? They're very similar. They're all part and parcel of God, but each one has its own identity. Each one is individual. Each one is unique. Each one of us is different and unique. So, and very special. So I tell you what, I'm going to stop the chat questions at the moment. Otherwise, we'll get a little distracted. So if you don't mind, I've turned off the chat. We'll turn it back on towards the end so that you can ask questions either on the chat or verbally. So go for it.
Yeah, we'll come back to some of those questions in the Q&A section. So don't worry, your question will definitely be answered. Okay, so we'll start with reading through the verses. So as usual, we'll offer up the opportunity to some of the older children in case they want to read. Ishvari and Kishori, I see your hand is up. Is that who wants to read from there? Both, it could be both, but yeah, whoever wants to go first can take the verses.
I'll read. Ishvari read.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Ishvari.
Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. O Parth, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant.
Okay, Kishori, did you want to read the next slide?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, please. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. Thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Parth, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself with the bondage of works. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
Sorry. Yeah, fear. Well done.
Okay, next, if we have Ria, do you want to read?
For those who are on the path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of Kurus. What is that word?
Kurus.
Kurus is the intelligent of those who are irresolute.
Irresolute.
Irresolute is many branched. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for evolution to heavenly planets. Resulted good birth, power, and so forth, being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this in the minds of those who are too attached to senses, enjoyment, and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things. The resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. The Vedas deal with mainly with the subject of three models of nature. Arjun, become transcendental to these three moments. Be free from all
Dualities,
from all
anxieties,
for gain and safety, and will be established in their self.
Thank you, Ria. There was lots of tricky words there, so you did really well.
I just think, do you want to just quickly explain some of the tricky words?
Yeah. Okay, let's go through. The intelligence of those who are irresolute. So basically, to be resolute means that you're really strong and determined and kind of fixed in what you're doing. So that could be your duty. So irresolute, it just puts that little thing meaning that you don't do any of those things. So people who aren't determined or fixed in what they're doing. Let's look at some other ones. So when we talk about fruitive activities, we're talking about activities that will bring about a certain result. So, you know, like we like eating fruit, that's kind of like a reward, or it comes with something, like it's the result of us growing or putting it together a seed. So similar way, our activities, we plant a seed and they come up with fruits. That could either be bad fruits or good fruits. And we do lots of those things in the material world. Sense gratification, that just means that you're like satisfying your senses. So for example, when you see like a really big chocolate and then you go and you eat the whole thing, then you're really gratifying your senses. Material opulence. So opulence means like, if you see, opulence is really wealthy. So you're seeing loads of diamonds everywhere, lots of glittering things, just really, really extravagant, nice things. You might have seen some paintings of like Vishnu's world. His world is very opulent. He lives with lots of nice things. And let's see if there are any other words. Transcendental, that means going above, like you're kind of above those three modes. So you're not involved in the material world, you're not entangled in a big web, but you've managed to become free of it and go above it in a very spiritual manner. Are there any other words that people might just want me to quickly clarify?
I mean, the three modes, what are they? We will go into a lot of detail later in the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Otherwise, I think you covered more. Yeah, I think you covered most of it. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got, I think, is this a final slide for this section? Or is there a few more? Just so I have an idea.
Look. Yeah, second last. Maybe get Pari to read.
Yeah, I would say Pari. Pari, did you? Yep, okay.
Sorry, thank you. Text 46. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore, Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Mataji, do I read that as well? Or
Yeah, we just got 3 more verses, so if you're okay to read those last 3.
okay. Text 51. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness.
Thank you very much, Pari, and thank you
Thank
to
you.
all of our readers again. It is really difficult, but we'll get more kind of, what's the word? We'll get used to the language as we go on as well, because it's like poetry, it's also quite poetical. So there are lots of different metaphors and things that we can follow, but everyone's doing really well. So congratulations on that. So we had a lot of information there. So we're now just going to try and put it forward to you as a summary, and then as usual, take away with one lesson to take away from it as well. So what, in summary, was Krishna explaining to Arjuna over here? Well, he wants basically for Arjuna to understand how this spiritual knowledge that we're going to be learning, that's summarized in chapter 2, practically affects our day-to-day life within the real world, or the material world, which is why we sort of put it in quotation marks. But in our practical lives, where we do have to get on with things and work and study and balance all of those types of things. And how does Krishna do this? Well, he says, when you're living in the material world, you have to follow these 2 essential duties of the spirit soul. And these are types of dharma. Dharma translates quite literally as duty, but it also refers to the characteristics and qualities of things that can't be avoided, neglected or negated. So they have to be done. It's our natural instinct as the soul to carry out these things when we're here in the material world, and also our spiritual dharma as well. So first of all, because we are here in this material world, the soul has a svadharma. And what is that? It's a worldly duty. So it consists of our responsibilities in the family, towards our friends, and towards society. So for example, within the family, we might be a younger child who has the responsibility to help out our parents, or has the responsibility to study hard so that we can pay back our sacrifices that they've made for us. We have a duty to our friends to be kind to them, to maybe help them out when they're in a tough spot, to give them advice, and they'll probably do the same thing back to us. And within our material society, at the moment, we have a responsibility to go to school, try and do well. And then one day when we all grow up, I know sometimes we always get asked that question, what do you want to do when you're older? You're going to have a job, and that will be your role in society as well. And it will be something you're probably very good at, and hopefully something that you enjoy as well. Then the soul does have a wider duty, one that goes beyond just this one life, one that goes beyond this material world, because this svadharma changes with every life. In one life, you might be a daughter. In one life, you might be, not a girl. In one life, you might be even an animal. So these things change in each life. But the Sanatan Dharma, or the eternal duty, is the same. Whatever life you're in, wherever you are, the soul's eternal spiritual duty is to reconnect with God and to try and go back to Krishna, try and get that Krishna consciousness. And that is essentially why we're here in this human birth as well. We're being given this opportunity to properly fulfill that Sanatan Dharma. So what lesson can we take away from this? Well, both of these dharmas can be quite difficult for us to execute side by side, or at least that's sometimes what we tell ourselves. And what we have to learn is, how can we combine these 2 dharmas and to make sure that we're fulfilling them both, because we can't neglect both of them. So lots of us, we get really caught up in our material duties, So wanting to go to school, getting busy with after school clubs, getting busy with playing with our friends. And we get a bit too preoccupied with our Swadharma and maybe forget our original identity. So when we forget that we're the soul, we forget that Sanatan Dharma. On the other extreme, we also might just get too involved in the Sanatan Dharma to the point where, but we don't understand that we do need to pick up our other duty. So we think we're doing the right thing by completely neglecting our family or neglecting the things that have been set out for us. But actually, we're still rejecting a duty that has been set out for us by Krishna, in a sense, for the soul. And so actually it's false, because we're kind of committing a sin by not carrying out that duty. So the most kind of balanced path, and this is something we'll see a lot in the Bhagavad Gita, the sense of balance, is to be alert to both duties and try and combine them together, or get a balanced lifestyle between material and spiritual when we're here. And we would have seen that a lot in some of the verses as well, even when he was advising Arjuna to fight. So don't get too caught up in the material. Don't think about what you're going to gain or what you're going to lose or all of that. I just want you to fight because it's your duty to fight. And whatever way it goes, you know that you did your duty. So it's that balanced mentality that Krishna really wants us to get, and that he drives home a lot in all of the Bhagavad Gita verses that we're going to be listening to. So this lesson, it seems maybe very difficult at the moment, but as we go along, each lesson will be teaching us how to execute both dharmas side by side. And particularly in chapter 3 and chapter 5, where we learn a bit more about karma yoga, we'll be able to understand how we can put that into our day-to-day life. Should we go to the next slide? Okay, who wants to read? Prathamesh?
Yes, Prabhuji. Text 54. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk? Text 55. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Partha, what a man gives of all varieties of desire for the self gratification which arise from mental conception, and when his mind thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone. Then he said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Text 56. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst their full miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Text 57. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor depriving it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Text 58. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness.
Great, thank you, Prathamesh. And John, did you want to read? Or let's see, who else? Arjun?
You can unmute. Arjun, maybe he's having some problem. There's a Shavi. Okay, Arjun. Okay, go on.
So the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment. The taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experience a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. The senses are so strong and impetus, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. One who restrains his senses keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciences upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and for such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger rises. From anger complete delusion arises, and from delusion bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool.
Very good.
Very good.
Those last two verses are very important.
Shavi, do you want to read these?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. One thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Therefore, O mighty armed one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shavi. And Krishay, do you want to read? Yep, hello.
Yes. What is night for all beings? It is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is never being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God.
Really good. Thank you so much,
Very
Krishay.
good. Very good.
And yeah, again here, like some words just to clarify, proprietorship is like just your sense of owning things, your right to own things. Let's see if there's anything else. Gratification, again, just a reminder that it's like when you want to satisfy your senses. Introspective, that means that they're thinking inwardly, thinking into the soul, reflective. Incessant is like just a constant flow of desires. You can kind of hear it in the word, it's like very constant. Yeah, I think that should be most of them, unless devoid is just without. So we're learning lots of lovely words today. I'm sure you can all use in your creative writing and essays as well when you have to do those. Okay, let's look at a little summary of this final section. So we've got some really important verses from verses 54 to 72. And why? Because Arjuna asks this all-important question: what does a sage do? What do they look like? How do I know how to act like a holy person who is balancing his duties properly? And Arjuna actually asks specifically, how does he sit? How does he kind of place himself in the world? How does he walk? How does he engage his senses? How does he sort of interact with the world? And similarly with how does he talk when he interacts with other people and he's with provocative situations? How does he handle them? And the Lord perfectly describes the profile of the person who has achieved this performance of all the duties perfectly. And we call this person an Atmarama, and that means a spiritually realized soul who finds just pleasure in themselves. It isn't gratified by just material objects like TV, gaming, all of those different types of things, but instead are satisfied in themselves as a spirit soul, a balanced spirit soul who is joined with Krishna. And Krishna explains that as a result, this soul is not affected by happiness or distress, gain or loss, honor or dishonor. In fact, they understand that everything that comes to them is temporary. So if happiness is coming, it's temporary because it is material. But at the same time, if they're in a distressful situation, if they're feeling sad, they also know that that's going to pass. And it's the same with gain or loss. One day you are gaining a lot, the next day you can lose some things, but you also know that time of loss is going to pass. But as a result, you're unaffected by either. You just see it as a temporary passage. And so they go above these dualities of the world that are always pulling us and making us miserable and wanting us to desire things and getting us angry. And so they don't feel fearful of other people or themselves anymore. They don't get super attached to things that might disappear. And so they don't get angry if they lose things or they don't get what they want. Instead, they remain absorbed in this spiritual delight. And because they know that they're aiming towards the spiritual world where they can find eternal happiness, they're actually much happier and much more at peace. So what lesson can we take away from this? Well, if we're able to restrain our senses by sort of nipping it in the bud and realizing the kind of things that we fall prey to, we can save ourselves a great deal of grief and anguish. So a lot of pain, we can kind of save ourselves that pain. And with the blessings of our Guru and Gauranga, we can become self-satisfied as well. And in a practical way, you know, things like realizing before you get really wound up about desiring, like I really like watching a show, for example, like, oh, I want to watch 10 episodes today, and then you don't get to do it. Just nip it in the bud and think, actually, how could I be better spending my time? So if we're a bit more thoughtful about our desires and reframing our desires so they're more spiritual, it can actually help us feel more at peace as well, because then we don't get as upset when we don't get or fulfill our material desires.
That's really good. Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to, maybe I should have tailored this lesson a little bit more towards children. That, you know, when we want to buy something, just wanted to show you a chart here. This is the text 62 and 63, such important texts, which basically tell us how we can control ourselves. As soon as we look at something, contemplating means looking at something that we want to enjoy. Let's take a chocolate bar, right? Sanjana already mentioned that, which is a really good example. So we look at a chocolate bar, immediately we develop a attachment to taste it, to eat it. And ultimately, that chocolate bar, if we don't get it, we become angry, right? If we get it, we won't be completely satisfied. If we eat too much, we'll be sick, right? So ultimately, it will not lead to satisfaction. it'll lead to anger, delusion, bewilderment, loss of intelligence. And that's really bad news because we fall down again in this world. So the thing is, what Sanjana said, nip it in the bud means as soon as you look at something, you're going to have a problem. So, you know, if you go to a shop and you think, okay, I need this. I think the lesson I should have put was think 3 times. Say to yourself 3 times, do I need this? Do I really need this? Do I really, really, really need this? By the 3rd time you've said it, you probably think, actually, I don't need it. And you walk away from whatever that thing that you wanted. In most cases, that will happen. So this is the idea that whilst you're young, you're very fortunate that you are in these sessions. I'm so impressed by Sanjana. She's one of the most amazing persons because she's picked it up so fast and she understands it so well. So I want you to, all of you, to follow her as an example of somebody who is young, yet understands so well the Bhagavad Gita. So whilst you're young, get in the habit of controlling your senses whilst you're young. If you're an old man like me, it becomes hard later on. Believe me. But when you're young and you do it, you will be way ahead of everybody. If you can control your senses in your mind, you'll be way ahead of everybody. Sorry, Sanjana, I just wanted to add that in.
No, thank you, Prabhuji. I think that's a really important lesson and a nice example. And yeah, like Prabhuji said, I'm learning from all of you as well. So actually, the younger you are, the kind of best positioned you are to make change. Like all of your questions are so much deeper than I could even imagine. And I learned so much from your inquisitive natures. So it's so good that you guys are here. I think you guys are going to learn a lot, and it will help you feel happier as well. Okay.
So shall we open it up to questions now? I've opened up the chat as well, but let's take some. If you've got a question, you can put the electronic hand up, and we can take.
Shall I start with some of the ones that were just in the chat from before?
Yes.
As we wait for
Go for it.
So I think one of them was, do we have to be human to be liberated? Very good question. I think it helps. Basically, it's a matter of consciousness. So when you're an animal, 90% of the time, your consciousness isn't quite there that you realize there is something more than the earthly world. So you're kind of just in a case of survival where you need to get your prey to eat, or if you're a predator, particularly, you get your food to eat, you sleep, you get up, you eat, sleep, mate, you need to reproduce to make sure that the species keep going. And that is generally the level of your consciousness. There are some animals who are slightly higher in consciousness, but none of them are really up to that same consciousness yet. Now you notice, and I think this actually comes up in the teachings of a lot of religions, is that what tends to be the difference is when you get to that human level, you then do start thinking, yes, I'm eating. A lot of us are very material, still eating, reproducing, desiring, sleeping. But we have that slight more consciousness that has brought you all here, which is, why am I doing this every day? Surely there must be a purpose. Surely there must be something more than this. And that's why you guys are here today, seeking answers. That's what got me here. That's what got all of us here. And so it's easier for us to become liberated because we can start doing the Krishna consciousness, and because we're doing that inquisitiveness, we can go up. And then the other question might be, then why, if I'm in the heavenly planets, is it harder for me to be liberated? And that's because although your consciousness is there, in fact, you probably are even more aware actually of the kind of spiritual elements that are going on. The heavenly planets are very opulent. And so, that cycle that Nabi Prabhu just looked at, where you want to desire something and then you're not fully satisfied, and then you get to lust and anger. Because of so much opulence in the heavenly planets, a lot of the time, it's a lot of people who go to the heavenly planets then fall down again, either to the earthly world or even lower. Now, that's not to say it's impossible, either in the animal, when you're in below human level or above human level. It is, of course, possible. you are a soul. If you want to be liberated, Krishna will fulfill your desire if you put in that effort to become Krishna conscious. But the human birth is the easiest birth actually in which to do it. It's still really hard, but it is the one in which the conditions are kind of the best. So we have the most chance. I hope that answers your question. Where do the souls go? Another good question. Well, souls are eternal, but where your soul goes depends on what you do at the end of your life, which we'll look at in chapter 8. Usually, if you're not Krishna conscious, it just depends on what your consciousness is and also your karma. So if you, for example, really like sleeping, you might come in rebirth as a bear who gets a lot of hibernation. And also your karmas will play a role into what your next life and next birth will be. But if you are at that stage of wanting to go back to the spiritual world, then you will go back to the spiritual world and resume your place in whatever service you were doing for Krishna before we fell down here. So you'll go exactly where you were before we were cast down into this material pool. Pari's got a really good question, which is, how do we find a guru and what if they are a fraud? Very wonderful question. So I think the main thing is kind of understanding where they've got their knowledge from and what moral authority that they are using. First of all, no guru should claim that you should worship them. Instead, they should be directing you to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and just pointing you in that direction of the scriptures. They will never ever say, worship me. Obviously, you should respect your guru, but you should not worship them as a god. Are there other markings as well, Nabi Prabhu, that can allow us to understand who is the correct guru?
You made a fantastic point. You know, the scriptures do say that the guru is as good as God, because for the disciple, he's taking him to God. But you're right, we should not think that the guru is God. Very important point. There are many other indications of a bona fide guru. Does he have a guru? And does his guru have a guru? Is there a link that goes all the way back to Krishna? Very important. Does the guru follow his own teachings or the teachings of his guru? That's another very important point. And there are, unfortunately, in this world, many, many, many frauds. So we have to study the nature of the guru, and the guru will study the disciple as well. It works both ways. So you're absolutely right, Pari. Very important. How do we find a guru? Is if we have a strong desire in our heart to be guided by a guru, Krishna will send that guru. So that prayer to the Lord, please guide me to a guru. Please allow me to have a spiritual master who will bring me to you. That's a really important internal prayer. Very, very good. We could have a whole class just on this question. Very important question.
Absolutely, yeah. And like Nabi Prabhu said, if once you've turned to Krishna, Krishna will turn to you, and he will provide an avenue through which you can find a guru that will fit with you as well and help you go towards him. So don't worry.
Shall we ask somebody, hear somebody? There's a lot of questions. Lokeshwar. You can unmute yourself, Lokeshwar.
I don't have any question, Babuji.
Oh, okay. So lower your hands if you don't have questions, okay? Only if you have a question. Shavi.
Why do we have to be liberated?
Well, I mean, technically, Shavi, to have to be liberated sounds like we're forcing you, which we're not. We don't. It's more like you'll want to be liberated. So one thing that we'll see is Krishna doesn't ever want to force anyone to come back to him or force anyone to love him, and that's part of the reason that a lot of us are still here, right? So at the end of the day, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like if he didn't want to give us a choice, if he wanted us all back and he wanted us under some martial law, he'd just bring us all back and be like, no questions asked. I am the authority here. That is the end of it. Don't even think about anything else. And no more wine, everyone, as well. You just say it and do it clean. But he wants us to come to him out of love. He's someone who likes love. And that is why he created all these expansions and souls in the first place, because he wanted to carry out pastimes and go around Vrindavan and the spiritual Goloka and have fun and enjoy these pastimes with us. And how can he do that if we are not there loving him? Then the exchange is gone, the pleasure is gone. It doesn't make any sense. But from our point of view, why should we want to be liberated? Well, a lot of that was answered in today's chapter, which is that things like happiness, distress, pain, gain, all of these things are temporary. And for our soul doesn't like that. And that's why actually a lot of the time we see people in hardship in the material world, because we don't like being messed around like that. We like something constant. And the soul remembers that constant happiness that we had before we were tied down by Maya and by the material modes. So one day we will come round, just because the soul will get tired of it, and it will sort of fight back in our body and get our mind starting to think, that's enough. I'm done being messed around by the material world. I want to go back. I want to be liberated. And Krishna knows that we will have that thought as well. The question is when, because we don't have too much time yet, especially in this age of Kali Yuga.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Beautifully
Shavi.
answered. Beautifully answered. Let's see, Ishwari, you can unmute yourself, or Kishori, one of you two. Okay, if not, yeah.
When you were saying about, like, you do have a chance as an animal to get liberated, what animal would you say would have like the highest chance of being liberated? Because I wasn't sure whether it'd be like house pets, which would be around like the Hare Krishna, or whether it'd be cows in Vrindavan because they're sacred.
That's a very good question. Actually, I think I recall this, you reminded me by saying the house pets who might be around Hare Krishna. The house pets, if not having that consciousness to be liberated in this life, are then, if they are in a Krishna conscious household, are very likely to be taken into human birth for the next life and actually be born in a Krishna conscious household again, which will give them a really, really strong chance of then becoming liberated. The other story that I think I remember from the classes that I used to attend with Nabi Prabhu, which is there was it ants on the windscreen? And actually they were chanting at that time. And unfortunately, because there were wipers, it might be monsoon season, they were unfortunately killed by the wipers. But because they were hearing the presence of the chanting, they actually would have been liberated at that point. I can't remember the story exactly. But
yeah, effectively, when somebody's doing seva, and the seva includes chanting of holy names, and the person, the living entities who perhaps leave their bodies due to that, they would be in a very strong position in the next life. But there is the example of Gajendra, who is the elephant, who in his previous life was a devotee of the Lord. But somehow he remembered his the prayers from his previous life. And as Gajendra, who was caught by a crocodile, he was praying to the Lord, please protect me. And he offered a flower to the Lord. And the Lord actually came and protected him and liberated him. So it's not impossible for animals. It's very unusual, highly unusual. But generally, as Sanjana very nicely said, the next birth of the animal, say of a pet who's getting prashad all day long, will be as a devotee, for sure. So very good. Nice question.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Kishori also has a question.
Go for it. 2 for the price of 1.
I would like to ask, why does Lord Krishna put us down on earth when he could just explain it to us up where he lives?
I love it.
Very, very good question, Kishori. Yes, I mean, I think the difficulty is that when we were in the spiritual world, we had this thought, and it was a really, really small thought, where we see in Krishna and in Krishna's worship and how he's getting served, and it was one inkling of a thought. I wonder how it would be felt to be Krishna, to be served in that way, to be worshipped in that way. And in the material world, we get this opportunity almost to lord over the material nature and other things, especially in the human birth. But we then learn that that actually isn't so great for us because we are not in the position to handle it. And in the material world, things kind of go wrong. And in a sense, that is the lesson we had to come down here to learn. And it also comes back a little bit to Krishna needing to know that we're coming back to him out of pure love and in the mood of pure service, because essentially Krishna could explain it to us just as he has with the Bhagavad Gita. Many people have read the Bhagavad Gita. Not everyone has taken away the Bhagavad Gita's lessons, even though it's been explained to them. So here it's kind of a training ground for us to put those lessons into practice before we can be ready to go back to the spiritual world. But by the time we've got that sense of Krishna consciousness, then Krishna knows for sure this person is ready to come back, they want to come back, and they will be happy when they come back and will be there in a mood of pure love, rather than sort of bringing us up before we're ready, and then actually there's kind of a sense of resistance almost.
It's a very nice answer. Also, it's like, you know, the child who's just so naughty that the parents will, you know, he wants to touch the fire. He just won't stop going near the fire. So sometimes what the parent might just do is let the child get very close to the fire and get a little burnt. So the child will never touch fire again. So it'll be a little bit like that. We're stubborn, we're foolish. We want to come to this world. We want to become, as Sanjana said, like Krishna, control us. So, okay, you want to do that? Krishna gives that opportunity for us. He fulfills our desires. He always does that. Whatever we want, he'll fulfill it. But he does it in such a way, this world is so perfectly imperfect. It's so perfectly imperfect. It's so imperfect that it's perfect. It's so horrible that we ultimately will go back to the spiritual world, because we will taste the horribleness here, but taste the nectar of the Lord. And when we go back, as Sanjana said, we'll want to be with him. There'll be no going back, you know, no coming back to this world. Nice question. Now, I'm just mindful, we've got about 7 minutes before the Kahoot quiz. And Shruti, hopefully you're ready with the quiz.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, maybe in a few minutes, just put the password on the Zoom, the chat.
Sure, Prabhuji.
We can log in. So we've got a few minutes. And I can see we've probably got about 30 questions as well. How should we handle this, Sanjana? What are you thinking?
Yeah, there are lots of questions in the chat. I saw a good one, which is in the chat, which I think it will probably be quite important to clarify with this chapter.
Go for it.
From Janya, which is, our souls go to heaven or hell after we die. In heaven, you can meet God, but you are already dead. So how do the souls meet God? So again, here, it's important to remember the difference in terms of who we are as a soul and who the body is. So at the end of this life, and every life that we have, our bodies will die, but our soul will, the journey of the soul will depend on kind of the circumstances, our consciousness, our karma, where we're going to go next. If we go to the heavenly planets, that's slightly different to going to the spiritual world. We're going to the heavenly planets because we're being rewarded for some good karma, and our consciousness is there to go to the heavenly planets. Maybe we've been devoted to the demigods, etc. So we're going up to the heavenly planets, and we'll be there in a sort of heavenly body, which isn't as, it's not like this one. It's a bit more spirit. It's a bit more spirit-like. Would be the best way to describe it. You can meet other people, but that is still another body that will then die at the end of that life. Now, in terms of when we are finally liberated and go to the spiritual world, you remember in this PowerPoint when Nabi Prabhu just went through the qualities of the soul is eternal. So even once your body has died, once you go up to Goloka, your soul will still be there. And as a soul, you'll meet Krishna in whichever position you go back to in your service. So it could be as a friend, could be as a conjugal lover, could be as a neutral position, maybe it's like a blade of grass in Goloka. We'll go through a little bit more of this. I believe there's a section in the chapters coming up. But you will meet God as a soul because your soul never dies. It is indestructible, eternal, whereas the body will pass away and it will get disintegrated because it's material.
Good answer. Why do we have so many desires? That's another question. The soul, the only thing the soul can have are desires. As long as they're spiritual desires, we're safe in the spiritual world. But when those desires turn into material desires, like I want a car, I want a house, I want a gulab jamun, and actually I'm hoping to get a gulab jamun a bit later on. But when we have these sort of desires, if they're not spiritually connected with the Lord, then that's where the problem comes. There's nothing wrong with desires. And if I don't know if you notice, one of the verses that we read is a sage. He's like an ocean. Many desires may come into his mind, but he is very calm. Just like rivers going into the ocean doesn't overspill. The rivers, the desires come into the mind of the sage, doesn't impact him. So this is something that you can learn from the Bhagavad Gita. You may get lots of, I want to do this, I want to do this, but nothing impacts you. You remain calm. That's very important. This is one of the big lessons of the Gita. So we've got a couple of minutes. Should they post the code?
Sure, Prabhu.
Sankhya Yoga we're going to take on in future sessions. Why can't we see the soul? We once we understand the Bhagavad Gita, we will see the soul, not just ourselves, but we'll see everybody equally as a soul, as equals. So we can't at the moment because of ignorance. We're in ignorance. We don't understand. Why are you not all doctors and accountants and dentists and whatever? Because you're learning, right? You're going through school, you're going through so many stages. So that is what another thing we're doing is going through stages. We're learning about ourselves because we've forgotten. How do we see the soul? Through the Bhagavad Gita, very important, through the Guru, through our understanding, knowledge. So I'm just going through some of these questions. Really good questions. We probably need to have a question answer session at one point.
Maybe we can do that midway or even in thirds or
one
something.
session we dedicate to question answers. Yeah, good point. Okay, all right. Let's take I tell you what, Akasha. You can unmute. Okay. Okay, Pari, what's your question?
Sorry, Prabhuji, I have so many questions about this one. But
Good.
actually, so my question, I wrote it down, so it's gonna sound a bit professional. But if the Lord didn't believe in the caste system, why was Arjuna constantly reminded that he was a Kshatriya? So actually, when we started this session, Krishna kept reminding Arjuna that everyone would, laugh at him or something if he wasn't right. But also we've learned that Krishna loves everyone regardless of if they're a Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmana or Kshatriya.
Correct.
So I wanted to know about why he kept constantly reminding him.
Because sorry, go on. No, go on.
I'll try my best. Yeah, basically the first thing is after that explanation, you might have noticed that Krishna says, now I've explained to you analytically why you should fight. And that's because first he kind of goes from a logical point of view in terms of just what's going on, what's the situation for Arjun. And that was the situation in terms of in that society, he was regarded as a Kshatriya. So that was kind of the logic almost behind it. Second is also that when we were talking about our Swadharmas, the caste system, as it's known today, the caste system, it wasn't supposed to be a class thing, but almost as a, okay, so when you're born with certain natural qualities. For example, Arjuna is a very good warrior. We know that he's, from our Mahabharata sessions, we know that he's very good at shooting arrows, etc. So it makes sense for him, for his Swadharma, his role in society, to be a Kshatriya. And actually for him to stand away from that duty and not to defend his kingdom would be both a spiritual and a material offense, because he's not using his qualities in the way that they should be used in order to keep that balance of the material world. So it's Krishna loves everyone, and he understands that everyone has different strengths, and that's why he assigns them these different roles in society. As Nabi Prabhu might have said in some of the other sessions, now this is kind of taken in a different way, and that's not the way that they are supposed to be seen. In terms of anyone being degraded, Krishna loves everyone equally, and actually there's a verse in chapter 5 which says that everybody should be regarded as a spirit soul. There should be no racism, classism, speciesism, etc. But it's more about the quality that we should see when Krishna is talking about Kshatriyas than anything else.
Good. Yeah, but also it's not that Krishna doesn't like the caste system. He created it. Chapter 4, text number 13. I believe he says Chaturvarnyam, I can't remember the verse now, but he says he's the creator of this the system of Varnashram. So this Varnashram is meant to be for the benefit of society, but it doesn't mean that he discriminates against anybody. We're all his children. He loves us all equally. Okay, I think we'll have to put a stop to this. Very good questions, very good points as well. No, thank you, fantastic. So let's, Shruti, if you can share your screen and we can start the Kahoot quiz.
Oh, Prabhuji, I'll just share. I don't know if you can hear the music in the background.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
And thank you, Shruti, for taking on. This was Tanya.
This is Tanvi's quiz. Yeah.
Tanvi's done the questions, but it's so nice that you've stepped in because you couldn't come. So I really appreciate your flexibility. And just in case, just to let everybody know, please do, if you haven't said who you are in the chat, please do so, because we do want to take the register. Register is important because you have to attend a certain minimum number of these classes in order to get the certificate and the prizes. Huh? So.
Okay. So I hope everyone managed to get in. If you just need to type in kahoot.it and then type in the code, which is 7059022, and then you would create a nickname. Please use your real name, and you would be there. So should I start, Prabhuji?
Yes, I think everybody should be in. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. True or false? Chapter 2 is named the knowledge of the self. True or false? Okay, we have 6 seconds. It is true.
Yeah, Sankhya Yoga. Yeah.
So, yeah. Why is Arjuna determined not to fight? Because he doesn't think he will win. He just doesn't feel like it. He doesn't have time, or he doesn't want to fight his relatives or elders. So red is he doesn't think he will win. Yellow, he doesn't feel like it. Blue, he doesn't want to fight his relatives and elders. And green, he doesn't have time. So the answer is blue. He doesn't want to fight his relatives and elders. This is multi-select. That means you can like select a lot of answers, not just one. Why does Arjuna approach Lord Krishna? because he is a guru, because he has divine knowledge. Arjuna desperately needs guidance. He knew that Lord Krishna would definitely help him. This one is kind of a tricky one. So again, red because he is a guru, yellow because he has divine knowledge, blue, Arjuna desperately needs guidance, and green, he knew that Lord Krishna would definitely help him.
That is a trick question.
So the answers are Arjuna desperately needed guidance. He knew that Lord Krishna would definitely help him, and because he has divine knowledge. And the wrong answer is because he is a guru.
Right. Anybody got that right?
Okay, next one. What is one of the teachings about the soul? It can be destroyed by someone with a lot of power. You can see the soul. The soul is eternally not the same. It is imperishable. So what it basically means is, in red, you can say you can literally do something to the soul, you can damage it. Blue saying the soul is not the same. Okay, it's green. It's green, and well done to most of you for getting the answer right. True or false? Our body changes through time, but we stay the same. True or false?
Nobody should get that wrong.
Yes.
What?
Oh, it's true. There's 5 people who got it wrong, but I'm pretty sure now you understand.
They must have misunderstood the question.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
What is the 2 closest definition of what a guru is? So guru is a spiritual teacher or a guide. Is it someone who helps you, an expert, or someone with a high level of knowledge? Okay, this one again is a tricky one. It's a spiritual teacher and guide, and someone with a high level of a high level of knowledge. Okay. This is multi-select again. Select the reasons Lord Krishna and Arjuna said Arjuna should fight. Death destroys the physical body, but the soul continues its journey. He just should. It's his duty. It would be a proud moment for himself if he fought well. Okay, I think it's pretty close to the time finishing. So yeah, I'll just say the answer. It's death destroys the physical body, but the soul continues its journey. Green, it is its duty.
So in this case, are there 2 answers?
Yes.
I see. So, and can people pick both answers?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
So to get it right, I think you need to click red and green.
I see. Okay.
There are also some options where there's like 2 answers correct, but you can just select one of them and you'll get it right. True or false? The soul is the living entity. The soul is a living entity. True is the blue button, and false is the red. It's true. The soul is the living entity. Which of these statements is true? The soul never changes. The body never changes. The soul changes. The soul changes as the body changes. Yes, it's the soul never changes.
Oh, wow.
Brilliant. Most of them got it, like only 1%, but everyone got it right. So the soul never changes. The body never changes. Obviously incorrect. Your hair color changes, your skin changes, and everything changes. The soul changes. That's incorrect. The soul changes as the body changes. It's not like wrinkles. So the soul has to stay the same, but the body same. True or false? Our parents aren't gurus. This is the last question. This one is a mediocre question, I would say. You have to think carefully. So this is false. Our parents are gurus in science.
So the 17 of you are in trouble.
We're gonna have a lot of unhappy parents on our hands at the moment.
It says actually Matri Deva Bhava, Pitri Deva Bhava. So
Yeah.
actually they're to be respected. And
Yes.
they are your
There's
first.
also, yeah. There's also says Mata Pita Guru Devam. So Mata is your mother first, then father, then your teacher, and then God.
Yeah.
So we are looking at the podium here. So in third place, we have Navnidhi.
Navnidhi, okay.
Second place, we have Krishay. And first place, we have Lokeshwara.
Yeah, Lokeshwar. Thank you, Lokeshwar. Well done. And then
And our runners are Kishori and Pari.
okay. Thank you. Very good. Now, next week is the second half of the Bhagavad Gita. And I would like a volunteer. You don't have to volunteer right now. You can maybe just send me a message if you'd like to do the 10 questions. And remember, this one was a little perhaps out of the ordinary, but this question should be specific to the verses that we read. So, and all the lessons that we've read, learned. So please, if anybody like to do that, please just get your parents to message me and we can organize that for you. It needs to be done on Kahoot like Shruti has done this time. Very, very good effort. Anybody?
Tanvi did that.
Oh, yes, yes. But you presented it very, very nicely. I don't think there's any other housekeeping. Next week, we'll do chapter 3. Try to read the notes that we send on the group so that you get the most out of this. And at some point, we're going to do more testing on the lessons, because that's the most important thing to learn from the Gita. How can it improve our lives? And Rianj, did you not do the Kahoot? Because usually you're in the top 3. Wonder what happened to him. Are you there, Rianj?
Yes, Prabhuji, I am there.
So where were you? How come? Did you not get a lot of them right?
Prabhuji, while I was doing, it was an internet issue.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. So you can all unmute, and I'd like to say thank you very much for attending, and we shall hopefully see everybody next week. Everybody take care, please.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Sanjana. See you, Shruti.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really good. Hare Krishna.
Babaji, I got a
Krishna.
question.
Lokeshwar, yes.
I may want to do a Kahoot after the week after next week.
Prabhuji, can I create Kahoot because my exams are done already?
So you want to do next week, Rianj?
I want to do after Lokeshwar.
Okay, after Lokeshwar. So Lokeshwar, 2 weeks time, yeah?
Yeah, and I want to know which chapter was it today on the Kahoot.
Today is chapter 2, second half of chapter 2.
Okay, Babaji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sanjana. Hope
you.
you're well.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
You too.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Pari here. I don't mind doing the second part of the Kahoot for next week, I think. But
Okay.
because I've already done it before, if you want to give anyone else a chance, that's fine.
You are always going to be our backup.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks very
Thank you
much,
so
Pari.
much.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, everybody. Thank you, everybody. So nice. And thank you, Sanjana. Really
Yep,
well.
no worries.
I learned a lot from
See
you.
Likewise. Bye. Have a
Bye.
good week ahead.
Take care. Take care.